Cause we just tryna get it poppin', what's good?
Hello powerful people, it's Paola. I hope that you guys are doing well. Today I'm going to teach you guys how to apply to dental school through the AADSAS website. So these are my 6 recommendations and tips on how to prepare to apply on the first day when the application cycles for 2021 through 2022 cycle opens. I hope that this is really beneficial to you guys, and I know that I needed this because there wasn't anyone to kind of guide me through this. If you liked this video and would like for me to share more about applying to dental school or my dental school experience, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I would love to share my journey with you guys. My first tip is to start early. So my application cycle for 2020 through 2021 opened May 16th, and we were allowed to submit on June 16th. And so you have a whole month where you are able to log into the system and kind of see what's there. So I'm going to basically encourage you guys to start early. Start getting your recommendation letters at least 3 months in advance. Let your committee or your boss or whoever you're having write your evaluations or recommendation letters know 3 months in advance, so then they can take the 2 months to really write a strong recommendation letter for you, and that's what you would like. The second tip I would recommend is to get organized. Get organized. Get organized. Applying to dental school is a marathon and not a sprint, and you can really get lost in the sauce of just trying to submit things, but you really want to submit something of high quality, so I would recommend to get organized, and I have some more tips coming along for you to learn how I stayed organized as well. Here's how I would categorize my folder, and I would recommend using Google Drive. So the first thing I would do is to have a folder called Dental School Applications, and then you can have subfolders where you have each of the AADSAS application in the file under that. So then I would recommend that you have a 5th folder. I labeled mine Paola Essays, and this folder was specifically for my mentors and my essay editors, and they basically would just access this one folder instead of having several folders, and it gets really messy and it just causes a lot of confusion. So I would just recommend having one folder where you put all the essays that you're working on that are really not finalized in one separate folder that you can send to your mentors and your editors for your essays. So the third tip is I would recommend starting off with your academic history section first. And the reason why I say this is because it really sets the foundation for you to kind of do the other sections more smoothly. And so I would recommend to get your transcript out and basically fill in the 4 sections that they have is the high school you attended, the college and universities that you attended, the transcript entry, and the standardized test. And so I would recommend that you get out your transcript, and you mainly have to manually enter each course, its grade and its credit. And so unless if you're paying for the service that AADSAS kind of filters in for them to take your transcript and do it themselves, that's also for a fee. So I would recommend, if you can avoid that fee, you can avoid that fee by starting earlier. So within 2 to 3 days, you should be able to input all of your classes. And that would be the first place that I would start once you're able to log into the system. Tip number 4, start the program material section second. And so I would still recommend for you to use the Google Drive. And this is the exciting part. Like, you're so excited for the schools that you're going to be applying to. So you can just basically add the schools that you want, and then you add the schools that you want, and then you go into the program materials section again, and you'll see that they list it. So there's a home tab where they basically detail the school that you're applying to and like their contact information for you to reach them. And then there is a questions tab where there's supplemental questions or just questions that the school will ask instead of giving a secondary application. Then there's a third tab, prerequisite tab. So this is why I recommend actually doing the academic history tab first, because you basically have to match each of your classes from your transcript to the prerequisite of that school. So if you haven't done the academic history part, then it's kind of you working backwards. So that's what I would recommend. And so for each of the school that you have, I would then go back to your Google Drive folder under program materials. If the school has a supplemental question that needs a well thought out answer, I would then recommend having a specific Google Doc for X school's questions. For example, some schools, will ask, why do you want to come to our school? What does our motto mean to you? And these supplemental questions that are separate from secondary applications. So I would definitely have a specific Google Doc under each school that addresses those questions as well. Okay, and then my 5th tip would be to do the personal information tab after doing the academic history and the program materials. And so this section has a release statement, biographical information, your contact information, your citizenship information, environmental factors, parent and guardian, race and ethnicity, and other information. So this one is kind of it feels like a filler, but I want to bring attention to some documents that you should be creating under this tab in your Google Doc. I would create a Google Doc for a description of your childhood, manual dexterity, education interruption, disadvantage statements, and special to this past cycle was COVID-19 impact. And so if any of these apply to you, well, the disadvantage statement may not apply to many people, or education interruption may not apply to most people, but I definitely think COVID-19 impact and manual dexterity and description of childhood I believe is not optional. But yes, so I would create Google Docs for that. And I would recommend still using Google Docs instead of Microsoft Word, because you don't want anything during this process to get lost, especially if you're doing many revisions of documents with your mentors or your essay editors. You just don't want anything to get lost during this cycle. And I also would recommend that you do not copy and paste any paragraph or essays into AADSAS until you are completely sure that that is the final draft. That happened to me, and that's a whole different video. It's not something I recommend, and it's not really irreversible once you submit the application. So definitely do not copy and paste until you're absolutely sure that this is the final version of what you want to submit. And the very last section that I would recommend you to do is the supporting information. And this is really the exciting part, because you get to put in your achievements, your experiences, and your personal statement. So this is where your shadowing hours would go. This is where your volunteer hours, any awards that you got, your dean's list, your scholarships, everything, that will really make you stand out as a strong applicant. This is where it would go. And so once again, I wouldn't recommend copying and pasting anything. I would create Google Docs for each of these achievements, experience, and personal statements to kind of write everything out. And you can use on Google Docs, by highlighting the paragraph and seeing its character count. I believe most of the character count were 600 to 450 characters. And so that's what I would recommend is, okay, and then this is a bonus tip, but it's payment. So dental school is expensive, and applying to dental school and just being in this application cycle can be very expensive. You can click on the upper right hand side of the AADSAS page to submit the application, and you'll see that the AADSAS system, the website, just to apply to all of these schools, similar to the Common App, will charge you about roughly $245 according to the 2020-2021 cycle. And then each school will be $116 for each school to apply to them. And each school can potentially have a different processing fee, which is a minimum of $50, and then their supplemental application, which can range on an upwards of $100 just to submit their secondary application. And I would also say that these secondary applications aren't a guarantee of an interview, so sometimes you'll be conflicted whether to pay for it or not when they haven't given you any response up until then. But that's a whole separate video on just the cost of applying. Fortunately, this year for me was the cheapest year to really apply to dental school because of and so most of our interviews were virtual, so we got to save a lot of money, or a lot of money that you probably didn't have. But I would recommend definitely saving on and upwards of at least $2,000 for the entire process of applying to dental school if you are applying to 5 or more schools. Well, I hope this was a very informative video for you guys and that you took away something and that you're able to prepare to submit on the day of the AADSAS portal opening. Let me know down in the comments if this was useful and what else you would like to know about applying to dental school.